Good evening, Property Development Australia. How are we all doing? We've got Tony joining us this evening. Who's here today? Have we thought of some comments, questions that we have? I know Mark had a question about return. Hi Peter, how you doing? There you are, Tony. Let me add you in. There we go. Adding. How have y'all been? It's back to school in New South Wales. How are you going, Tony? Oh, I should
Cheryl, how are you? Yes,
Good.
put those on.
Should put these on. Give me a moment. I was charging them up, so
That's all right.
bear with me for a second while I.
That's okay. You had a good week?
I've had a great week. I've had an interesting week. I did have some challenges.
Right.
Been able to work through them. Did a lot of reflecting, self-reflection. We've talked a lot about sort of our goals and also the things that we value in our lives and why we do what we want to do. And I did quite a little bit of that. I was able to make some decisions around that.
Perfect. Anything I can help you with tonight?
Oh, I mean, one of the things we addressed last week was limiting beliefs.
Yes.
So one of the limiting beliefs, and sometimes we don't realize they're limiting beliefs, and it could be, like you said, fears, and they could come up as rational fears. It could be, what if I don't, what if I don't earn enough to pay off the mortgage? What if I don't, what if I, all the what ifs, right? And come up and become possible reasons that seem logical reasons to not pursue the things that you want in life. And yeah, so it was one of those. It was a journey. I have to say that I've had to go through in the last week. And I can't say. I mean, we all go through this. Whether it's to do with projects or deals or whatever it might be, or business, or even looking for a new job, or quitting your job. Right? That's always a difficult decision to make. And I have to say, I spent quite a bit of time meditating. I know this, and that really helped me, because a lot. I mean, I meditation for me is really keeping in tune with my own intuition and what sits right with me.
Yeah, sure.
And often I'll just wait for this.
And so it's all about meditation. I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me. Oh,
No, I can
sorry.
now. I can now. I couldn't there for a moment. So meditation is all around getting centered. Yeah. And so when we look back, we tend to get depressed. And when we look too far forward, at times we tend to get anxious. And so if you're feeling either of those or experiencing either of those feelings, then when you get centered, when you meditate, you get yourself nice and centered. And so I practice what's called mindfulness meditation, which is all around concentrating on the here and now, effectively stopping and smelling the roses, as they used to say.
Correct. And being in the present.
Yeah, correct. That's it.
So I was able to work through that, and definitely that whole mindfulness and being in the now was able to sort of help me work through, and take it to the next stage, and almost like a leap of faith. So here we are now, and I said I always say everything in life is a learning or a blessing, and sometimes in the moment it may seem quite hard, and I'm not talking whether it's my situation. It may seem quite difficult at times, or it's it's a problem. But I often like to think that things are a blessing in disguise, and is a blessing in disguise if you choose to, and you have the ability to choose how you want to deal with it. And that's that. Hi Jim, how you doing? And that's sort of how I work around.
It's all based on perspective, right? So two people could look at the same thing and see it very differently. And so some people could look at what you're describing and see that as a huge problem and an obstacle that I can't work my way through. It's too big and it's going to beat me. And others see it as a small little speed hump we've got to go over the speed hump, but it's a speed hump because on the other side of the speed hump takes me closer to my goal. So it happens all the time where people can see the exact same thing, but based on their perspective, see it very differently. So for you, it sounds like you had a few little speed humps. That's cool. You got over them, and you want to recognize the fact you got over them. And so now you've built some additional resilience along the way. So you're a little bit stronger for doing that. And now you're ready to tackle the next speed hump because it's inevitable. So it's around the corner. I don't know what it's going to be, but it'll be there. And it's all about you now preparing yourself for the next one because, you've got to get through that to get closer to achieving your goal.
Exactly. And because you've been through the speed hump, you put on bigger wheels, better suspension, and then you can tackle the next speed hump a lot better. But then the next speed hump might be a different variant, right? So it's being able to be versatile and move along with what life really throws at you.
It's universe's test as well, Cheryl. So the universe is constantly testing all of us and seeing how serious we are, and if we're fair dinkum about our goals, and it puts out little things in front of us. And if we're serious about our goals, then we'll crash right through them. And if we're not that serious about our goals, then it'll beat us and we'll move on to the next thing. So, I'm a big believer in that. And it's about being consistent and persistent and determined and, all the things that, we keep saying here week in, week out. And I keep saying, multiple times throughout the course of the day to all of my clients, it's, you've just got to be consistent, persistent, and it'll happen. It will happen. I bet you've got to stick with it long enough. And I had a session this afternoon with a client, and it was all around persistency and consistency, and that when this individual sticks with something long enough, then she's going to succeed. And in fact, I also reflect on my JV partner who's 30 years older than me. He often talks about the fact that you stick at property development long enough because what happens is your competition will drop away beside you, so other developers will drop away because it gets too hard. And so the mere fact that you've hung in there is means that in the end you're going to be successful. So I don't entirely subscribe to his line of thinking, but what I do, but his point is that stick with something long enough, and whether it be property development or business or relationships or health and wellness and we could get going on and on and on. It's no different.
Yeah.
Righto. Now, what is that? Was that what we're going to talk about tonight? Did we get any questions during the week?
Got questions, and I'm not sure what's happening with these, but I think I've used them up too much today, so let me charge them up a little bit.
I can hear you okay.
What has said, I've been attempting to meditate in the mornings, but I'm a little unsure if it's supposed to be focusing on nothing to clear the mind or focusing on specific aspects of my life. Tony, do you want to share your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, sure. So I'm very, when you get to know me, I'm very simple in my approach. I'm a simple country kid, and my approach is about I concentrate on my breathing, and that's it. And so I get comfortable, sitting down, put my hands on my lap, just rest them on my lap, and I concentrate on breathing, and in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And that's my version of it. And that keeps me nice and centered. So what I do is, because I'm doing this in the morning, is I'll get my phone, I'll set the timer, the countdown timer, and I'll set it for a couple of minutes, and I'll hit start, and I'll throw the phone on the couch beside me, get comfy, and just start concentrating on my breathing. And it's like anything, start off, I'd encourage you to maybe start off for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, because what will happen is you'll get these thoughts come across, and it's like, oh, I need to get that from the shops, and oh, I've got to call that person, and so you want to, when those thoughts come in, perhaps early on, you just want to go, okay, if I can just get through 10 seconds of concentrating on my breath, awesome. Tomorrow, guess what? I'm doing 20 seconds. And guess what? The next day I'm doing 30, and just build the muscle. And then as these thoughts come across, you want to concentrate on batting them away so you can just focus on getting centered. And like I said before, it's all around not focusing on the past and getting upset or depressed about what could have been, should have been, etc., and not getting too worked up about some anxious moments into the future, just bringing yourself nice and centered. So that's my approach to it. That seems to work for me, but look, there's many other different types of meditation. People will, try and look at a sort of form of visualization to meditation. I do visualization. I don't call it meditation, but people, it's, what is it? Transcendental meditation is another form, but I just do mindfulness meditation.
Sure. Do you use any apps in particular as well?
No. No, not for meditating. No, it's just simply no noise, phone, timer on the couch, comfortable, and just concentrating on my breathing. And then I get surprised when the alarm goes off in a couple of minutes' time, and then I move on to the next part of my morning routine. So that's, and I've done that routine now for what, three and a half so years. So it's something that I'm used to now. But I would encourage everybody just to start small and don't try and sit there and meditate, like a Buddhist monk for 10 or 20 minutes. Just start off with, 10 or 20 seconds. Do that the next day. Just try and stretch a little bit further.
Yeah. And Scott, I mean, the way, like I said, it's finding what works for you. Because,
Of course.
like I said, I don't often do it silent. I actually like to focus on something. So I actually like to focus on like I'll put some music in the background, but it might be what they call the crystal bowls. So it might be a crystal bowl, and that I believe in sort of raising vibrations and in your body and in your energy. So Scott, it's really, I said, there's no right or wrong of meditation, and don't judge yourself either when those thoughts come in, and they always come in. If I'm sitting there and I'm and I'm like, oh, what do I have to do? And and you sort of go, oh no, thank you, thanks for coming by. I'll talk to you later. And don't judge yourself. And if you feel you want to focus on something, and sometimes it's just listening to yourself to be able to say, what does my body need? What does my soul need today? And if it is visualization, then focus on that. And I think it's important. The one that I've been practicing on myself, and for a while, is that idea of focus. So whether it's focusing on breathing or focusing on image in your mind, and for me, what's really calming is water. So I love visualizing myself on a riverbank and looking out to the water, and then listening if I've got music in the back, so listening to the water sounds. So Scott, I find something that works for you. There are very good apps if you want to start off with. There's one that's called Calm, and it'll be a guided meditation. I find that actually quite good to for a lot of beginner meditators to start with. But it's finding what works, right? And everyone's going to be different. So there you go. Thanks for the question there, Scott. Let's see if there's anyone else. Hi, Tony, Richie, Clay. How you doing? Wave. Hello, everyone's back. Jin, so in essence, you replace the distracting thought with let's get through this period. Replace the distracting thought. It's more so just bringing it back. So the way I look at it is going, all right, do. Oh, hi, how are you? I'll talk to you later, and push it back, and then it sort of gently bring yourself back to what you were focusing on. If it's the breath, bring it back, because the monkeys will always want to talk. I've got little monkeys in my head, and they'll always sort of find their way in. So it's just as Jin, it's saying, thank you for coming, but I'll look after you later. At the moment, I'm looking after you. Scott, thanks. I've been doing what you mentioned, Tony. Just thought I may have been going about it the wrong way. I said, you always find whatever works for you. I have found meditation. I used to rush it. I don't know about you. It'd be like a task, my task list, tick, 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 done 10 minutes. But I realized that I wasn't really focusing and being in the moment. And when I realized how beneficial it was to my life and how I was able to manage my emotions or my thoughts or my relationships better, I've almost made it, it's almost like a drug now. Like I need to have it in the morning.
What's the objective? You know what I mean? So is the objective to tick a box, or is the objective to improve yourself from a calmative, help yourself from a health and wellness point of view? And obviously it's the latter, right? It's not about ticking a box. So you just want to ask yourself, what's the objective? I'd love to know, Scott, who's asking the questions, how you're finding the process since you've been starting. Are you noticing a difference? Would love to know. And you don't have to do this in the morning either. So it could be before you've got a big meeting, for example, or it might be a meeting with a real estate agent, and you might be getting a little bit uptight about it, perhaps a bit anxious about it. Get yourself into a mindful state, slow your breathing down, calm yourself down, and then you can get in there and ask whatever it is that you want to ask of the agent or whoever the meeting's with.
What Scott says, excellent, thanks for the feedback. Jin, he was referring to your meditation technique when he asked the question about let's get through this period. I think we talked about
we addressed that, yeah.
Richie, how are you doing? And Jin's got the little monkeys. Oh yeah, that's it. The monkeys in the head.
That's it.
You got to deal with those monkeys. So yeah, meditation. Oh my goodness. Obviously there's definitely interest in how we meditate or the benefits of meditation. Might be something we talk about a little bit more next week. But
yes. So what's tonight's topic, Cheryl? I've got to get you back on track.
Tonight's topic is sales.
Sales.
We're going to talk about sales, and I know you've got a background in marketing and sales.
Correct. Yeah, spent 25 years in it, so made a career of it. And for me, sales comes down to mindset. And I'm sure people watching go, oh, well, I'm not surprised, given Tony always focuses on mindset. But a lot of people have negative connotations towards sales. They're worried they're going to sell to someone, etc. And you need to change your mindset in regards to your helping people, adding value, solving problems, etc. And you may have heard of this before, but a lot of people really struggle when you tell them, say to them that they've got to sell, or they think about the fact they've got to sell. If you just start to change that mindset, and we've talked about it from a public speaking point of view, right? It's no different, where we talk about, rather than focusing internally, focus externally. Focus on the fact that I've got something of value that I'm wanting someone else to have, because I know it's going to improve their situation, whatever it might be. It might be a good or a service or whatever it is. When you start to change your mindset around the fact that I've got something that can help that person, then all of a sudden you'll want to do that a whole lot more. And for those of us who have negative connotations around sales, the reality is that we spend our whole life selling, right? You think about all the things that you do. As parents, we are selling the whole time to our children. We are negotiating with our children, are we not? Right? I mean, my goodness. And I feel that, my boy is 16, my girl's 14. I feel that the negotiations are getting harder and harder and harder. So I'm having to draw on, all the various tools in my toolbox. Constantly negotiating with our partners. Meals that we might want to eat, or restaurants that we want to eat at, or TV channels that we want to watch. I mean, when you stop and think about it, we're negotiating, persuading, compromising, but we're doing it our whole life. And, obviously this is to talk about the business of selling and linking it then back into property. But the reality is that we spend our life selling quite often. Unless it's in my household, it's a dictatorship and you just said, this is what we're doing. Sure. Okay. Yeah. And there's no debate. No, it's yes, dear. Jin says, yeah, most salespeople try to ram their products down your throat and you think, I never want to be like them. And that's really interesting. Is there a stigma attached to sales? And it seems like, they're a salesperson, it's sort of like, are you a second car salesperson? And why is it almost, she says sales is fun, and that's cool. I'd really like to understand from Richie's perspective why, how he's made it fun, and why there is this stigma around sales or sales. Well, sure. So the stigma is because there has been people, less than reputable people, who have caused the stigma. Right, and whether it be trying to ram something down your throat that you don't want, whether it being unscrupulous, not trustworthy, so on and so forth. These are the reasons that there's this negative connotation or negative stigma around sales. I mean, Richie's comment around make sales fun. I mean, that's just adjusting your mindset, right? I mean, that's an awesome approach, and it's like it's something that needs to be done. So create a game out of it. Have some fun with it. I'll give you an example from not so much sales, but in regards to putting in offers on property. So we talk about that you need to put in so many offers onto various properties in order to get the one. So it's like a funnel, right? And if, for example, you want to earn $100,000 from your first property development deal, and you need to put 100 offers in, then each offer is worth $1,000. Now, you don't physically get the $1,000, but it's about playing a game with yourself to go, well, I've just put an offer in, there's $1,000. I put another offer in, there's another $1,000, because you know that by the time you put 100 in, that you're going to secure the deal that you want, and there's the $100,000. So that's just one example of games, but you need to use, various tricks, etc., to make it fun. Have games, so challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to overcome the rejection, the objections, so on and so forth. So I think it's great, Richie. A wonderful, wonderful approach.
So pull it back to say an example of a property transaction, and I'm in the middle of one at the moment, and we've got to negotiate the purchase of a site, and I always think of there's going to be the vendor wants this, which is all the way up here. The buyer wants this, which is all the way here. How do we get to the point of here and it's an agreement? We talk about, and you've probably read the book many times, getting to yes, getting to your BATNA. And is that one of the tools that you sort of use as well?
Sure. Yep. So plan your negotiation is the first thing I'd say. So work out what's your aim high point, what's your good point, and what's your absolute bottom limit point. And you need to be very clear on that. You need to do that before you start the negotiation. So you've got a very clear plan. I'm going to go in at this particular price point. When I say aim high, if you think about it as buying, well, that's actually buy it for as low as you can. Does that make sense? So if you're going to sell, then aim high means sell it for as high as you can. Aim high in the sense of buying means buy it for as cheap as you can. So you want to set your various parameters and start. But you've also got that point where that is your absolute walk away point. The two key tools to be successful in selling is questions and listening. Now, again, you go back to why is there such a negative connotation around salespeople? Because in the old days, salespeople had the gift of the gab. They would talk. They'd be slippery people, and there'd be very little listening, but they'd be schmoozing and looking to persuade you. Whereas today, in 2019, and it hasn't just started in 2019, it's all around asking questions and listen and really understand with the person that you're negotiating with, what is it that they want? Where are they at? What's important to them? So again, in a property negotiation, is time important to them? Is price important to them? There's some other terms that are important to them. What is it that's important to them? Do they want to be able to rent back, for example, for a period of time? Again, this comes from questioning, and listening. And ideally, in regards to the ratio of listening to talking, you want it to be 4 to 1. So listen 4 times as much as you talk. Now, worst case scenario, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so do it, twice as much listening. But the reality is, if you can push it out to 4 to 1, right? So that is really concentrate on spending more time asking a question and then sitting back and listening for the response, and then starting to formulate things. And also with the negotiation, you don't have to rush things as well. Control the tempo of the negotiation. Right, depends upon in which position you're in, but you can just control the tempo, slow things down if you think things are going a little bit too quick, or speed them up if you think they're going a little bit too slow. But really look to take the driving position in that negotiation. But again, that's through questioning, through listening, through understanding what's important, and also knowing in your mind that you've gone and spent the time actually plotting out what are my various points that I need to start with, what's an acceptable point, and what's my absolute walk away point. Yeah. And you see it all the time with auctions. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's you talk about the skills of effective salespeople. I've just touched on 2 of them being listening and questioning. Planning, empathy is another one. Being patient. Obviously, mindset. mindset applies to everything, not just to selling, and we go through that every week. So in the spirit of trying to mix up what we talk about, but absolutely spend a lot of time planning the questions that you're going to ask, planning how you would respond. So try and preempt the types of questions that are going to come across the desk at you. How would you respond to those? Like, take a lot of time in trying to craft out how it is you're going to respond, what you're going to say. Doesn't mean you're going to get them all right. Doesn't mean that you're going to be able to preempt every single question that comes your way. But here's the thing. If you get a question that is a question that you don't have an answer to, don't BS anyone. So I don't know. I haven't got the answer, but I'll come back to you by close of business today with a response. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging the fact you don't have an answer. And here's the other thing with that, is that if you experience a situation where you're asked a question and you don't have an answer, A, you'll go back to them perhaps by the end of the day with a response, but B, you'll always have an answer for that moving forward. And this is like anything, right? It's about building the muscle. So the more conversations you have, the more dialogue you have, etc., then you will build the muscle to have those various conversations.
Right. So what are good, and it would mainly be, and say, our audience would be, I would say, majority are buyers. And they're looking to purchase sites, purchase projects and all that. How do they, what are good tips for them to be able to negotiate the best outcome, obviously for themselves, but still be able, what are some good tips to be able to approach real estate agents or vendors by presenting it themselves in the best light, but be able to still say, I'm trying to be able to create the best outcome for you. But,
sure.
But obviously, it's self-serving, right?
So quite often, So quite often with real estate agents, we want to go in low. So as developers, we want to obviously go in and low. We want to buy that property for the very best price we can. A lot of times, the real estate agent may not fully understand all the costs involved in developing. And so it comes to them as a shock, because in their mind something might be worth 700,000 and you've come in at 550, and you haven't just plucked a number out of the air. And so my advice is actually take an agent through it. Actually say, you know what, I'm more than happy to take you through how I've come up with this particular number. And if I haven't got something right, then let's have a chat about it. Does that make sense? And so you might say, well, look, I'm basing it off land sales price of, let's say $400,000 a block if we're doing a 1 into 2, right? So I'm basing it off that. I'm basing it off these operational costs. I'm basing it off my infrastructure charges, so on and so forth. So be very transparent with stuff and help the agent understand, because in a lot of cases the agents don't know what's actually involved in property developing. They don't realise all of the costs. The other thing too is don't forget about the P word, profit, right? We're not doing this for fun. We're doing it because we're here to make some money. And so we're entitled to, to communicate the fact that we're a business.
Sure. And what are good ways, and I've dealt with vendors directly, in terms of sales letters. So this is a live example here where I've had, I've done a lot of letter dropping before speaking to vendors, and I believe you have as well. What are effective ways of writing letters that trigger interest in a vendor to actually ring back?
Well, let me answer it this way. When I'm doing letters, and at the moment, let me be transparent, I'm trying to sell a heap of stuff, right? So I'm not doing it. I haven't done any letters for a while, working my way through 2 very big projects. But it's all about test and learn. So that is that rather than trying to second guess what people will, how they'll respond, you want to come up with slightly different scenarios. It might be the copy. It might be handwritten versus typed. It might be a handwritten envelope. It might be dear homeowner versus to the direct person. There's different nuances that you can do. What I talk about is test and learn. So test and learn being, if you're going to send out 100 letters, and I'm just going to use some arbitrary numbers here, you might do 3 different letters, so 33 each, or one of them is obviously 34. Send them out. What's the response rate? So rather than you try and work out what's the best type of letter, because different letters will work. The other example is, do you send it as an individual? Do you send it as a company? So you send them out and then you track them. So what I do, spreadsheet, I've got all 100 addresses, the date that I sent the letters, and then the letter type. And it could be as simple as A, B, and C. And I know what A, B, and C means. Does that make sense? And so then what I'm doing is I'm tracking the responses. And what I might find out of that is that letter B might actually be the winner. So whatever letter B is, and it could be very basic. Remember that the ultimate objective of sending a letter is to get the phone to ring. Right? So if you reverse engineer that process, that's the ultimate objective of sending a letter, is you want the phone to ring. And so just through test and learn, you want to work out what's the right type of letter. Here's the other thing with all this, Cheryl. You know that I've got, I love my drawings, right? So I brought along some stats for everyone.
Awesome.
Because when I talk about letters, people will tell me, oh, it doesn't work, Tony. So my response is, well, how many letters did you send? Oh, I sent one. Well, so here's something here that I've prepared earlier. This is from Salesforce. I've got to do it this way for you guys, don't I? This is from Salesforce.com, one of the world's leading sales companies. But this applies to contacts, right? So what happens is 44% of businesses stop after one contact. Now, this is not in regards to property development letter writing. This is just general business contact, right? 22% of businesses stop after 2%. 14% of businesses stop, 22% of businesses stop after 2 contacts. 14% of businesses stop after 3 contacts. 12% of businesses stop after 4 contacts. 8% of businesses last to 5 or more contacts, and here's the kicker, and that's where 80% of the sales happen. Does that make sense? And so what that means, we talked about it before around persistence and consistency and determination and patience and all these wonderful things. Guess what? It applies for sales as well. It applies for sales. Don't send one letter, hope like crazy that it's going to work. Now, I'm not saying that it won't work, because it could. Is it possible? Yes, it is. However, don't send one letter and go, oh, Tony, this doesn't work. Rather, as you can see by the stats, that 80% of sales actually happens at the 5th or more contact, but yet only 8% of businesses actually make their way through that. And I'm actually preparing this. I've got my biggest client is a large franchise, a national franchise group, and I'm presenting at their conference shortly. And that's one of the slides that I'm going to take them through, because they'll be doing maybe flyers or different activities to try and generate new leads, new business, and they'll do it once or twice, and they'll stop. And so my point is, guys and girls, you need to persist with this. You need to keep going, and you will be successful. And so going back to the letters, you want to constantly do letters. And so I say to my students, do you want to send a letter every 2 or 3 months? Because someone's situation today might be that they're not ready to sell. So remembering that when you go direct to vendors through letters, you're dealing with people who perhaps haven't thought about selling. And so you're wanting to get them to open up to the thinking of selling. Whereas when you're going to an agent, then typically they're dealing with people who want to sell, right? So going to an agent can be a shorter term piece, letters can be a longer term piece. And so you're in it for the long haul. And so someone's situation is that today I'm not ready to sell, but thank you very much. In 2 or 3 months, there's another letter. And perhaps it's a slightly different letter to the first one. Perhaps it tells a little bit of a sequence. But there it is again in 2 or 3 months, another letter. Maybe you get nothing back from that. Maybe for them, the situation hasn't changed. But here's the thing, you send another one in 2 or 3 months time after that, which is effectively 6 months from now. And guess what? Maybe things have changed. And maybe because you're the person who's sent 3 letters by that stage, you're the person who's at the top of the pile, right? Yeah. And so, but here's the other way to look at it. What's the alternative? If you don't send the letter, and you're not near the top of the pile, right? And the same applies for social media. So I do multiple posts on social media every single day. The alternative is, if I don't do any posts, well, no one knows about me. So I'm constantly doing things, and whether people choose to like it or not, that's entirely up to them. But the point for me is that we are constantly doing something every single day, multiple times a day. So the same with your letterbox letterbox drops. is every 2 or 3 months, another, and another, and another. And if you go back to this here, it's the fifth contact, right? It's the fifth contact. So you want to set yourself up for the long haul, and that's about managing your expectations. Don't think for a moment that you're going to send one letter and be inundated with responses, because you won't. And the reality too with letterbox drops is that you're looking at about a 5% return. And of those, so if you send 100 letters, you're going to get 5 contacts back. If you send them directly, then the first 2 will probably be abuse. So it'll be abuse for how'd you get my details and blah, 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 all the, all the good stuff. If you haven't sent me letters and you haven't been abused, then I encourage you to send a letter to get the abuse. It's very good for character building. So that's the first thing. You'll get so that'll be 2 of them. Perhaps one of them will be a tire kicker, and maybe 2 of them might be remotely interested, not really, out of your 100. And so if you think, well, 5% is the industry average, then if you want to have 50 responses, you send 1,000 letters. But within 1,000 letters, again, do what I said, regards to come up with different types of letters that have some slight differences, and then you can start to work out what seems to resonate and what doesn't.
Yeah. We've got a few comments here while we were chatting. Jin says, this actually happened to me. Jin, I can tell you're very much a numbers man, because he gets all excited when Tony brings out his numbers, spreadsheets and all. He said, it's actually happened to me when someone was trying to convince me to join New South Wales Business Chambers. It was literally the 5th contact when I finally decided to join. I was ready for 3 months ago, which was the penultimate time they contacted me. And it's that also because they've almost worn you down. Like, after the 5th time, they go, all right, now I've seen you enough, almost to a certain extent as well, that they've almost become a little accustomed to seeing you, and it's built a little bit of trust.
Look, it could be, but again, as the purchaser, in that instance, Jin is the purchaser because they're wanting him to join the Chamber of Commerce, whatever it was. Yes, he might have got worn down, but I mean, you're in the position where you can still say no. A lot of people find it hard to say no and eventually give in. But perhaps the reason was that he felt there was enough value, right? And so theoretically, a transaction takes place when value exceeds price. Does that make sense? So when I, as the purchaser, can see greater value than the price tag, and regardless of what it is, I will purchase that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I can see more value than and it doesn't matter if you're buying a tin of baked beans right through to a house, the theory says that a transaction takes place when value exceeds price.
I always refer to Fiji water as a great
Perfect.
Sales, sales and marketing pitch there. Like, so what is the value that Fiji water brings, which is just water, right?
Hydration, isn't it?
Hydration. But is that the value? No, it was marketed to, influence really, famous people and all that. So people felt that if I drank Fiji water, I'm going to be cooler than I really am, because Fiji water does. And so it's just that it's that innate value, sort of that innate feeling of value that it brings. So yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Correct.
We'll move on to see. We've got a few questions around sales tonight.
Okay,
Mark,
great.
How you doing? Sending out letters is very time consuming. What do you think about the use of MailChimp and such other applications, which I'm assuming are online applications? Also, if you have 3 letters, do you think that the receiver is going to remember?
If I sent 3 letters, well, they may remember, they may not. But I suppose it's again a point of you've got to be in it to win it. But also it might be that 3rd letter, it's not so much about them remembering, although it could be, but that 3rd letter might be that their circumstances have changed and you're Johnny or Jill on the spot. Does that make sense? As opposed to sending it once and then hoping that in 6 or 9 months' time, when things change for that particular vendor, that oh yes, I remember that letter that I got 9 months ago. That's not going to happen, right? I mean, it may happen. Is it possible? Yes, it is. But the percentages are low. But if you're constantly sending the letters, then chances are that you're going to be on the spot as the circumstances change, and hopefully that they do remember as well. Going back to the comment around MailChimp, look, you want to look, for me, it's all about driving efficiency. Every single part of your business, you want to look at, how do I make this more efficient? Have you considered VAs? You know, so have you considered people offshore to do things? I know that you know, there's people who will send paper, so A4 paper, envelopes over to the Philippines and have them do the letters, put the letters into the envelopes, address the envelopes, send them back, and all you have to do in Australia is put a stamp on them, and it's a whole lot more cost effective. So you've got to think about, yeah, it might be time consuming, but what if I just outsourced that process and I then spent my time on doing something different?
Yeah.
And I don't suggest spend your time having a holiday or having relaxing. What I'm suggesting is spend your time on something more strategic in your business, where you can actually make more of a difference, as opposed to some of these you know, mundane, laborious tasks that if you can outsource them, fantastic. The other is that you know, there might be some, there was an app that I used, not an app, it was a program that I used which converted my handwriting into a font. So it gave the appearance of handwriting. So, you know, so you're able to do those sorts of things where it came through and it had a whole lot of grids, and it had a big A, a big B, a little b, etc. And I simply had to write in the box beneath what my handwriting version would be like, and I created Tony font. And so then I would do the letter and it would have the appearance of being handwritten. So look, try different things. There's plenty of stuff out there. Google, right? The most famous, you know, research website, Google stuff up.
Yeah, and it depends as well, obviously, Mark, who your audience is, right? So you're talking about, you know, an online and an offline mode of communication. And you know, if you're talking about MailChimp, that's generally a mailing list or a contacts, you know, list you already have, which might be email. And similar thing, you know, that's why you've got these emails, sort of autoresponder type things, and an email. Tony, you've got something set up where, you know,
Infusionsoft. Yeah, correct. Yeah, so I use Infusionsoft. There's a whole range of them, Cheryl, out there, and there's Entreport and a whole lot of others. MailChimp is one of them. And again, the open rates on emails are quite low, so you need to be creative to try to get more open rates. The thing that seems to be working at the moment is, I know, text messaging seems to be working, so SMSs. But again, it depends on what you're, you know, who you're trying to attract. In the majority of cases, you may not have email addresses. So all you have is the actual physical address, and it might be an older person who isn't that computer savvy. So, you know, you've got an address, you've got an owner's details, send the letter the good old fashioned way.
Yeah.
But think about how can I make that as efficient as possible.
Definitely. If you're needing VAs, Mark, just PM me as well. I can sort of point you in the right direction there. Richie's got a question about letter drops, because some of us have access to RP data. Would you address the letter to the owner if it can be found, or would you address it to the homeowner? And would you do colorful envelopes or just plain ones? I've had. What's your strategy then, Tony?
Well, technically, you're not supposed to market it directly. I mean, that's the reality. So if you look into the fine print, whether it be RP data or whether it be on Pricefinder, technically you're not supposed to market it directly. The challenge is that when you address it to the homeowner, you say dear homeowner, then it just sort of blends in, right? And so the chances of them opening that are a lot lower. But disclaimer, it does say that you shouldn't send it direct to the homeowner.
Yes, yes. I'm sure a lot of it, but I do agree. It is more effective, obviously, because people feel that there's a bit more connection there. I've always sent my envelopes colored. And they've been very, very effective. I've sent, one of my most effective ones was a black envelope, and actually got about 10 homeowners together. And I said to them, what actually got you to open the letter? They said they all thought it was an invitation. I said, fantastic. It is an
Beautiful. It was. Yeah, it
yeah,
was. It's an
yeah,
exciting invitation.
yeah, yeah.
Again,
So
reverse engineer. So reverse engineer being, what do you want to happen? You want the phone to ring. What do you need to happen for the phone to ring? They need to open the envelope. If your envelope blends in with every other envelope, then the percentages of them opening it is reduced. So you want to think creatively around that. In America, what's very big over there are things called yellow letters. So they write on yellow paper. So if you Google up yellow letters, you'll see an enormous number of different different options for direct to homeowners. But they use yellow paper as to be stand out and differentiate itself
yes,
from standard paper.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So just like I said, try what works. And
Try different things, and you'll figure out what works. Does that make sense? And so don't try and guess, what necessarily is going to work. Just try different things, test and learn, but do enough so that you can actually have a good sample. So don't just do 5 letters and 5 letters and 5 letters, because that's not enough of a sample. Because remembering that the average rate of return is about 5%. So I'd suggest that you wanted to at least do 100, because if you at least do 100 and you do 33, 33, 34, then you're at least going to get 5 responses. If you can
yeah,
get more than that, I know some people who've got 10 and maybe 12, 13%, right? But work off about 5%.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I love how this is going because lots of questions. Scott,
Oh, great.
he's asked, do you try to relate to a person or business's sentiment when trying to sell? For example, when they receive a letter, we understand some people will get pissed off. Would you try and relate to this frustration in your letter? I guess, for a certain
Why not? One of the skills in
make
selling is about empathy.
yeah,
It's about empathy. Again, why not? In the spirit of you're wanting to help them. You're wanting to, for some people, they may need to sell for whatever circumstance. But yes, if you can use empathy in selling, it's a key tool. And again, that comes back to listening and asking plenty of questions, and then looking to empathize with the person that you're looking to buy from, because you're trying to build rapport.
yeah,
And one of the great ways to build rapport is to empathize. Is they talk about mirroring and a whole range of other different techniques, different NLP techniques and other techniques. But yeah, absolutely, empathy is a critical skill in selling.
yeah.
And remembering too that, oh, sorry, you go, Cheryl.
No, I was going to say it humanizes you as well, because a lot of people, if you're
Of
talking
course.
about vendors who might, like I said, have a certain idea of what developers are, humanizes who you are as a person, and less intimidating.
Of course, that's it. So what I was going to say is it's also, it's not just selling as in getting letters. It's selling as in you're selling to try and secure finance. You might, so again, at the purchasing phase, right, or even the pre-purchasing phase, how else are you selling? So I'm trying to secure finance. So whether it be finance directly through someone like Cheryl and her business, or a bank or whatever, you might be trying to sell the concept to a JV partner.
Yeah.
So again, there's plenty of different scenarios where you're selling. It's not just in the actual negotiating with the homeowner. Okay, so think about all those. How are you positioning yourself?
Yeah.
Are you coming across in a way that is attractive to the person to invest with you?
Yes.
Are you not? Reverse engineer. If you were being approached by someone who was wanting some money or wanting to JV partner with you, what would you want? So always try and reverse engineer. And again, that's a little bit of that empathy, trying to understand the person who you're dealing with. What is it they want? Don't rock up with a little scratched out bit of paper that talks about your development plan. Actually take the time to go through an information memorandum and put in various scenarios, etc., feasibilities, all the bits and pieces that you need. Take the time to do that so you come across professional. Also, in that regard, what I encourage a lot of my students to do is look at getting either websites or Facebook pages. Start to grab the video and start to create, stories. Start to, here I am on site. So you might have some testimonials, for example, that you can put on your website. here I am on site. You can see behind me, here's the Tonka trucks, they're digging up pipes and whatever it is. So people start to get the idea of, you know what, I feel that I know this person. I feel that this person's trustworthy. I feel that I want to, you know, hand over $100,000 to this person, or I might want to, you know, if you're in reverse, you know, I want to, you know, I want to JV with this particular person because you've built up enough of testimonials. You know, it's your reputation, right? So personal brand is just the 2019 version of reputation. Right? We just call it a bit of a funkier name nowadays, but it's all about that. And so if I think about, for me, what I do, the fact that I do these lives with you, I do lives with other people, I'm constantly doing videos and lives on my own. It's all about, this is who I am, and you either like me or you don't, but this is who I am. And so you need to do those sorts of things as well. Think about that, because that is a form of marketing, you know, marketing / selling of your business.
Yeah, and that whole idea of personal brand in today's market and for marketing is what it's about, right? It's not only about a company brand. Is, well, at the end of the day, people are buying into you as a person.
100%, 100%.
Whether it's, you know, I said anyone that's on excuse me, on social media, it's selling themselves.
Well, what I'm noticing, yeah, absolutely, and what I'm noticing, correct, and what I'm noticing more on social media is that the rawer and the grittier posts are. So I do a lot of manufactured posts. So I've got a team of 2 people who help me with that. But what we find is that the rawer the post, then the more responsiveness, because it's real, it's authentic, as opposed to something that's had some graphics over there and blah, blah, you know, other bits and pieces. And we'll still keep doing some of those. That's why lives, you know, gets a whole lot, you know, broader reach than just posted videos, because they're live. They're live. There's no manufacturing. There's no second takes here. This is it, right? And you know, so that's all around.
Yeah.
That's it. And you know, it's all around being authentic. But again, it's in the spirit of, if you're looking, and again, let's go back to the audience being property developers. And if you are someone who perhaps is looking for some finance, then you may want to consider, how do you position your personal brand? And do you think about social media as a platform to do that? So I've got another one of my clients who does, you know, rent for rent. And what she's done is she's got a couple of Facebook pages and also websites, so that when she's dealing with agents, they can see the previous examples of what she's done. And so it's like, you know, you meet someone for the first time, and in the spirit of trying to build some rapport, it's like, well, you want to learn about me? That's cool. Here's 3 different places you can go and find me online. Here's a, you know, here's a Facebook page. Here's a website. Here's maybe a YouTube, whatever. People then start to feel like they get to know you. And ultimately, it's about know, like, and trust. So I know you, I like you, and I trust you. And they're the 3 key words, particularly from you know, from a finance point of view. And Cheryl, I mean, this is your domain, right? The whole finance side of things. And, you know, I'm sure you could add, you know, plenty to the viewers on that topic.
Yeah. And if you talk about finance, obviously being able to, when we're assessing an applicant, a lot of it is, you know, risk. It's risk management. So we're assessing the whether, you know, not just the project, but the actual developer themselves, and the risk. And that comes to there's a certain level of, you know, is this person sort of someone who we feel has the experience, has the knowledge. And if they don't have a website, not that that's a downer, but having a website, you know, that internet presence, online presence, just gives a little bit more credibility to go, all right, they're a company, they're a business that wants to be that's serious about developing. So there are, you know, I totally agree with what you're saying there, you know, provide a lot more content, and that's value to people, and that's what really people are looking for in this day and age, is that education, educating the motivational, educational, Gary Vee is a fine example of that. He talks about anything and everything. He must have a video on him at least 12 hours a day.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely. And again, but it's about reverse engineer. So what is it that you're trying to do? So if you're trying to get someone to JV with you, how would you do that? So again, reverse engineer, if you were wanting to JV with someone, what would you need to see? And so then you just provide them that. If you want to get finance, well, then you reverse engineer that process. If you want to get, you're selling yourself to agents as well. So, you want the agents to bring you the off-market deals. You don't call up an agent once and then expect, well, I called them once. I can't believe they're not bringing me those off-market deals, right? Again, go back to, you want to constantly build relationships with these people, and that's a form of selling. It's a form of, letting them know, here, marketing. Here I am, I'm ready. Every couple of weeks with an agent, you're calling them. I encourage my students to go, always touch base with the agents. We have spreadsheets going. We track all of the contacts that we make. You want to create systems around this stuff, and then you're selling once you're into the project as well, right? So you might be selling a concept to council. You mightn't be doing it directly, but you might be with your town planner looking to negotiate, right, a particular development application. That happens all the time, right? So you're selling during that phase, and then obviously you're selling at the end, because you're physically selling stuff, right? So you've created something and now you're looking to offload it. But if you think about the whole process within developing, then you're selling at different stages and marketing at different stages for different outcomes, but it's just constant right throughout the whole process. And again, that ties us back to the title of these, Tuesday catch-ups or Facebook Lives, which is around the business of property and getting people to think about things very differently. Think about it bigger than a hobby. Think about it as a business. Think about it. If you want to be create a career in property, then what are the things that you need to be doing to ensure that you have a long, enduring, sustainable career? One of the keys in property is finance. Another one is having deals come to you. So how do I go and do that? How do I sell and market myself to ensure that I've got this constant, pipeline coming to me?
Correct. I think we've got some really good tips there. I've got a few more questions that have come through before we sort of finish up,
great.
Tony.
Great. Oh my goodness! It's I tell you what, time flies, but also just the weeks. Like again, I sent you a message yesterday because we don't talk during the. I mean, if we have to, we will, but we don't normally sort of plan for this, and we just. I always say to Cheryl, just surprise me. Let's just get into it. Let's just see how it rolls. But time flies, when you're having fun.
It does, and I love that the community is definitely a lot more comfortable with being interactive as well. And I definitely
which is great.
Ask questions, put yourself out there, and like you said, don't let fear hold you back. Like just get out there, because the questions that you have are probably ones that everyone, a whole lot of other people have as well. And so if we can sort of kill two birds with one stone there and help the community, that's fabulous. Richie says, I dropped 100 letters, got 2 calls, and about 16 of them went on the market without calling me. That was in the last year. So was that the 2 calls? I'm just sort of, Richie, I'm not quite sure if that meant the 16 of them were ones that you reached out to but didn't go through you. And the 2 calls they did go through. Might need to clarify that.
Sounds to me like he's got 2 contacts, but 16 of them chose to go with the agent. And then let's be honest. I mean, traditionally that's the way that people sell. So there'll still be people who feel safer going through an agent. But again, how many letters did you send? Were you, every couple of months, like I said, sending letters? Were you providing a nice little storyline to your letters? Don't know, but these are the types of things that don't just send it once, send 100, and then hope like crazy that it's all going to work out. Send 100, then another 100, then another 100, then another 100, and then another 100. When you've sent that 100, another 100. and keep going. And that's the whole point of this. If you're trying to make a career out of this, and that career requires that you have a pipeline of deals coming in, you've got to do that. They're the things you've got to do. Again, go back to, it all links back to what's your goal, what's your why, what's your what. And if your goal is to create a career, a sustainable, enduring career in property, and you need deals to come in the front end, profitable deals in the front end, so then you can create whatever it is you want and then, you know, spit them out the back end, well, then you've got to do these sorts of things. And whether you do it yourself directly, or whether you think about how can I drive more efficiency in my business and think about other alternatives, these are some of the things that I'd encourage all of you to consider.
Yeah, awesome. Jin, last comment there is, so we were talking about personal brand. He's made the comment that LinkedIn, but definitely not Facebook. I think it's more professional. I guess it comes down to your audience, really, and what the message is. So there's
well, also there's going to be there's people on LinkedIn, there's people on Facebook, there's people on Instagram, there's people on Snapchat, there's people, you know, so you know, it's about being everywhere, you know, being on YouTube, you know, doing something on all of those platforms, because there'll be plenty of people who only use LinkedIn and never use Facebook, and there'll be people who only use Facebook and never use LinkedIn. And so if you choose one over the other, well, then there's people who won't hear you. So there's people who will and people who won't. So you need to, you know, again, rather than trying to solve the answer, test and learn things, put things out there, work out what is, you know, what's working, you know, constantly evolve what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. And he says, I mean, the big boys like multi-million-dollar sites and heavy technical stuff. Oh, that's interesting. Multi-million-dollar sites, and that's usually through LinkedIn. A lot of it is mainly off market, so they're neither on LinkedIn or Facebook. So it's very much a relationship business there. But I get what you're saying there. It does come down to, like I said, the audience and your target market, and where a lot of them hang out. But I mean, LinkedIn and what we're doing with property and development, I'd say LinkedIn and Facebook would be, if you had the choice of two just to really focus on, two of those would be the ones I'd spend time on. And if you want Instagram, I don't do Snapchat, but Instagram, YouTube, yes, YouTube would be the other one as well. You know, focus on the ones that you can handle within the, you know, and be good and efficient at them, without spreading yourself too thin. And one big question: what's the difference between iterative learning and experimental and dabbling? Oh, what are you referring to there, Jin? What's the difference between iterative learning and experimental and dabbling? In what context? What are you referring to there? Oh, you're making me think.
Any other questions, Cheryl?
All right, let me scroll back. Mark, ultimately, is it about good targeting in relation to your offer? Yes. Understanding who your customer is, or your target market. Oh, we've got lots of questions. I hope we've addressed all of them, or at least most, and I apologize if I've missed any because they've been scrolling down. Let's see if Jin's dabbling means giving up easily versus refining technique. What's the difference between refining technique and experimentation?
Well, to me they're very similar, right? So constantly experimenting, refining, so trying different things and then refining, evolving. You know, being open to constantly try stuff and try enough to then get a decent sample to then work out, is it working or not? So I would see them being very closely related. In regards to the comment around not giving up, well, that's. I mean, you don't need to ask me my thoughts on not giving up. I think the viewers know my thoughts on that. So, but absolutely try stuff, work out what is going to work. Because again, don't try and solve it for the other person. right? Actually try different things and then work out, well, hey, this is working, this is not working. Tweak this. Does tweaking this give me a better result? Don't know. Try different things. Test and learn is how I describe it.
Yeah. I think what also is, and when you're saying trying different things, they need to all be, you've got to put some thought into each of them and
Of
why you're
course.
tweaking things to be able to test them. So, if it's positioning, if it's wording, if it's presentation, have a very clear idea as to why you're doing things. If we're talking about 3 different letters or whatever it might be, the reason why you're doing it a certain way. So, yeah, I think, goodness, we're pretty much towards the end. We could keep going, but I think we've passed the hour, Tony.
That's okay. So can I just, okay, that's okay. So I want to finish with a couple of things. One is that I did another drawing. So I want to finish with this. So one of the things that I focused on heavily in my 25 years of sales is not actually focusing on my top line number, but focusing on the activities that I need to do in order to get there. So I would call them sales drivers. So, a lot of people have asked around the whole, how do we acquire properties, letterbox, et cetera, but there's a whole range of different strategies that you can adopt. So one might be letters, one might be with agents, one might be knocking on doors, one might be with buyers agents, so on and so forth. But again, you want to have various targets here in these drivers, and you need to focus on the activities that you can control, because what you can't control is whether or not someone is going to sell you their property. Does that make sense? And so it's all around, what can I control? I can control the activity that I'm going to generate. I can't control if someone's going to sell me their house. But what I can control is the number of letters that I do and the number of agents calls that I make, the number of, might be open homes, it might be door knocking, it might, whatever your strategy is. What are those things? So I wanted to finish with that. And the last is, if I could just do a little plug, I'm going to be in Sydney this Friday, Saturday and Sunday morning. So if you're in Sydney and you want to come and meet me, in fact, I've never met you in the flesh, Cheryl, and there's plenty of others down there that I've never met in the flesh. So I'm down there from, we're around from 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. So if you want to come and have a chat to me, I'll be with Rob Flux. For those of you who know Rob, Rob heads up the Property Developer Network. And then we're going to be at the Ride Eastwood Leagues Club on Saturday, all day Saturday. Actually, we've got an information session in the morning for those who want to be involved in property development. Then we've got the regular monthly meetup in the afternoon, and then the people will stick around for a few drinks and whatnot after that. So, but if you want to come and say hello to me Friday afternoon, if you want to book some time with me, let me know. We're available from 2 o'clock on, and then we've got 2 meetings on the Saturday. We will have time, not before, but certainly in between and then after. We'll certainly have plenty of time to say good day and be nice to meet as many Sydney-siders as we can.
Wonderful. Would you be able to post that link up? I know there's
I can, yeah.
But,
yeah, I'll do. Yep, I'll do that.
And if you want to send me as well, I'll edit the description for this live, and it'll say Tony's in Sydney, here and here, and I'll add the link as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate you doing that. So I'll put that in.
Alrighty, perfect. Mark, thank you for tonight as well. Thank you for all being here. Tony, as always, lovely, and it's a highlight of my day and my week.
I know. Well, hey, look, I get to see you on Saturday, right? So that's going to be a real highlight. Highlight for me. Get to meet you in person, which would be nice. And as I said, I've got a few trips coming up to Sydney, but I haven't been down there for a little while. So I'm really looking forward to coming down and saying hello to to a whole range of people and talking property or mindset or sales or whatever you want to talk about. I'm happy to have a chat about it.
Perfect. No worries. I'm looking forward to it. A few more days, a few more sleeps. Thanks, Tony.
That's it. Terrific. Thank you, Cheryl. Bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Bye.